Welcome to the Lazy CEO podcast, where Jim Schlexer, author of Great CEOs Are Lazy and founder of the CEO Project, features compelling experts and topics for CEOs of mid to large-size companies. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another Lazy CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schlexer. I am your host and the founder of the CEO Project. Well, today we've got a topic of interest, I think, to a lot of our audience, and that is kind of a situational hire. Either A, when you aren't quite at scale to hire somebody and you need a little muscle in a particular position, but also when you have somebody depart and they're in a critical position and you aren't really ready to hire somebody else. So what do you do in that phrase? And the answer is a fractional CXO. And this could be a couple of different jobs. This could be CFO, CMO, sometimes even Chief Revenue Officer, but also COO. And luckily today we have an expert in that last topic. He's going to talk a little more broadly about it, but specifically about fractional COOs. We have Bill Simmons. He's the founder of Thrive Business Operations. And what they do is they provide operational support for companies that, either need that extra muscle to kind of get them over the hump, or, somebody's left and we need somebody to cover for a while that's got real capability. And they provide those fractional COO frameworks. They've got a framework of operational excellence that they bring to the table as well. And we're going to have a good chat with Bill about all that. Hey, Bill, welcome.
Well, hey, Jim, thank you for allowing me to sit in and hang out with you today.
Love it. Well, this is a question that shows up all the time. And literally, I was talking to a CEO the other day, happens to be a CFO, but his CFO is departing under whatever terms. And he's like, I'm not ready to hire somebody else. I haven't geared up the search. What do I do? And the answer is bring in a fractional. They're usually super experienced and senior, and they hit the ground running. And I think this is what you guys do in the COO space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no two situations are 100% alike, right? And the way we may enter in to serve the company and help solve problems may look slightly different, but it's always focused around operations. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely one of those things that I always say people can't use a resource they don't know about. So in some cases, it's for those business owners and company leaders to know that, wow, I have another option here that might be able to be more efficient, more effective, cost effective, all that. And so, yeah, it's a great opportunity in the season we are for as a business owner to find new options.
Yeah. So what background do you have that got you into this business? I mean, it's kind of a niche-y business, right?
Sure.
It's consulting, but very specialized, a very particular kind of client and situation that makes you optimal for them. What got you into this business, Bill?
Yeah, couple things there. One, we often say that the niche is in what we do, and that is the fractional service. And today we're a firm where at the beginning it was the Bill Simmons show. Like many people out there who are those single shingles, I don't disrespect that because that's how we started. And I started the company, primarily providing outsourced executive leadership strategy you can actually execute. Honestly, I appreciate the consulting comparison, but everybody's a coach and everybody's a consultant today. And if we're honest, it makes us all roll our eyes. We're tired of hearing it. And in some cases, if you're not careful, fractional is becoming the new coaching consultant.
Yeah.
And so we need to differentiate ourselves on what that looks like. So we often say, coaching consulting is free if you work with us. Our job is to actually help execute your vision and strategy and get the results that you're looking for. And I had come out of, an executive director in Washington, D.C., serving, multiple colleges that brought interns into the city for 2 semesters. And my job was a lot of fundraising, a lot of recruiting, organizational management of the company. And I traveled quite a bit. I was in 300 speaking engagements in 6 years. And I saw a lot of high-level leaders having similar frustrations. And that's where I saw the opportunity. And now today, terminology has changed. At the beginning it was virtual COO or virtual executive director. We're better at what we call it now, fractional COO, fractional chief operating officers. And so out of that experience, I saw a need, and that's part of our value, is to see a need, meet a need.
Got it. Interesting. But yet I looked at your background, it's primarily theological.
Well, it was. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, a business owner, isn't that a faith journey? Because all you're saying is, I believe, and then you trigger the, and you trigger the event that helps you to reach out to that vision, and then in private, you're like, oh man, I really hope this works. So I don't think you could be a good entrepreneur without it being some kind of leap of faith, no matter what.
I remember a joke that goes, somebody who's never prayed to God has never taken an advanced calculus class in their life. Like, please let me pass, right?
Yeah. It's funny, back when prayer in school was an issue that you'd make the news from time to time, I used to tell people, listen, it doesn't matter, because no student is ever prepared for the test, and they're always praying in school. So
exactly right.
Let's just get off the topic and move on.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with, like, what would be a couple of the classic scenarios where somebody should be thinking about a fractional executive? I think I painted a couple, but you're obviously more knowledgeable about this than I am. And when do you get the phone call? Hey, I think we need to talk. What are the scenes?
Every situation through these years we've experienced, but I would say the dominant experience is, we're working with the founder of a company that has been the visionary and creator, and has by sheer brute forces brought the company to where they are today. They might be 5, 10, 15, 20 million in revenue, and they've brought some good teams around them. But at the end of the day, they are still feeling like that everything comes through them.
Mm-hmm.
And they now need a real partner that they can trust to help execute on their vision, really clearly recognize where we're wanting to go as a company and the culture you're creating, so we can replicate that culture, but also end up helping you run the business 90 days at a time. That's kind of our promise to you as a business owner, and increase execution. So if you feel like you have a vision as a business owner that your operations cannot keep up with, we should be having a conversation. We're never going to eliminate that gap, because every good visionary is always way ahead of the group, right? But we should be able to shrink that gap and increase that. So a lot of times there may be some really highly competent people helping in the operations side of the company, but they're not necessarily thinking strategically and helping to understand how future growth can take place. So we can come in and begin, installing our processes to help address that.
Yep. And the problem with, the people you grew up with is they don't know what they don't know, right? So they don't have the breadth of experience that a fractional will come in with and go, look, I've seen this scene about 37 times and I can jump to the answer instead of trying to figure it out for you, right? So I think the speed and the experience is a really big part of this value prop as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to speed up the execution of solving those problems.
Right.
And, you're able to bring your experience, and all of our team. My business partner is Kai Bailey. She and I are very committed to bringing a team of fractional COOs together that have all been there and done that as well too. They've had high level, operational roles, but they've also have ran their own business, and in many cases sold that business or bought and then sold. So there's a lot of that kind of experience that we can bring to the table to say, as we roll up our sleeves and get involved in your company, you get to leverage that experience.
Yeah. So I get it. Early stage entrepreneur that wants to make the leap and got a gap between the ideation and the execution. What other scenarios do you see people giving you a call and saying, hey, let's talk?
Yeah. Other situations, where maybe they've brought in a COO, and for whatever reason, the relationship did not work itself well. And so then it's like, I know I have this need, but I have a situation that didn't work. How do I proceed from here? So it's a good opportunity where we've had companies say, help us install a system of how we work with a COO. And so
Right.
then on the other side of that, we're able to bring somebody in or help them maybe bring somebody in that will be able to work well with that owner. I think, some people have ego and, I think it's a lot about serving, obviously, as I've used that word several times. But, in some cases, that's one of my problems with the consulting world is they come into a business. Well, if you do it the way I've done it, you'll get the results I got. And I'm like, that's, may I just say it the way Bill Simmons, it's BS.
Yep.
And so that creates frustration because I think the business owner is the expert in their company. They know it. And so we have to honor that. And so when they have struggled with relationships that really don't serve, I always say you can't tend to be the smartest person in the room, right? And so when we're talking to companies that have had those ineffective relationships, then building the trust for us to be able to say, here's our model is just going to be different.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's helpful. Let's go to, like, let's say I engage somebody as a fractional and broaden the aperture here, like any CXO. Let's start with, like, what obviously they're filling a seat for me at some level, but then deliverables. Like, what would be the deliverables? If I'm the COO and I'm bringing in somebody in one of these roles, what kind of deliverables can I expect? There's, like, do the job, but what else, right? And how do I? And I'm getting into, like, how do I manage that person? Say, what should I expect, and how do I manage them? What
Yeah,
what
I
sort of
think
best practice in your mind?
yeah, our big thing is, I have 5 books over my shoulder that all say the same thing, right? And that is, how do you run your business 90 days at a time? You
Yep.
can use different words depending on the book you read, whether it's quarterly priorities or if it's OKRs.
Yep.
If you're familiar with, objectives and key results, we like the O instead of being objectives to be outcomes. So
Yep.
when we work with a client, we're like, we want to know what that the quarterly outcomes need to be because that should define the scope of work. That way, it's not arbitrary, it's not ambiguous. We're always clear every 90 days from a strategic effort. What are our outcomes and what are the results that we should be going after? That should dictate what is getting executed. And that, if you're doing that every 90 days, you're evaluating, did we move the needle on that? And then we're establishing the next 90 days priorities and we're keeping things moving. Now, many times, whether it's you might have somebody in marketing and HR and finance, one of the roles of a chief operating officer is to centralize all of those OKRs and making sure the accountability is moving forward. That way, the business owner isn't the one,
Right.
really having to hold all those pieces accountable. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so you're going to come in and do a 90-day sprint kind of model with specific deliverables, obviously custom crafted for the particular organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just do the job, but also move the business forward in certain ways, right? We talk about high leverage work, right? Work that we put time in and it pays back over time. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the kind of projects we're thinking about. And in your case, also ride herd with the rest of the team is what I'm hearing. Like, just make sure that everybody's hitting their marks that they need to hit going
Yeah,
forward.
I'm a big fan of convergence. My job is from a strategic perspective, to be able to be at that 30 or 50,000 foot perspective, being able to see all the different functions of the business working on key objectives and key outcomes, and being able to recognize if we keep all these parts moving, they're going to converge at some point, and that's where the real magic begins to take place for change in the organization.
Hmm. Um, and how long? I mean, like, we talk about fractional, which is to say part-time. And given the level of experience, hopefully you get the same bang for your buck as if I was to hire a full-time person. Help me, like, if I'm dealing with this, I'm at a scale where I think I need somebody helping with operations. Why would I go fractional or part-time, but more senior versus just go hire somebody? How do you advise people when they're trying to make that decision?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there. One, it is about bringing in a higher level quality person. It
Sure.
is fractional, so let's get the least sexiest part of it is when I'm selling it is, hey, it's fractional. It's fraction of the time, but it's also a fraction of the cost. When you hire a full time in the COO world, if you hire a full time COO, in the U.S. right now, the base salary, average base salary, which I think is a little low, actually, is probably around 150,000. Once you talk about the cost of employment, potential bonuses, investment for incentives, it's easily a $225,000 to $250,000
I buy that.
investment. I can say, it's the secret sauce for us is real easy. We're going to work with you and say, based on your revenue range, this is what the value of a full-time COO is. Once we identify a couple of parameters, we're going to be at 50 to 60% of that cost. So immediately I can proclaim we're going to save you the cost fractionally of what it would be to have somebody full-time. But we're also going to speed up execution actually, because of the way our Thrive Ops cycle works to clearly help run our quarterly sprints and help you operate 90 days at a time. So fraction of the time, fraction of the cost should be an intelligent part of that conversation that excites the business owner.
Got it. Interesting. Well, and that's a pretty compelling argument. So why doesn't everybody do this? Why do we ever hire a full-time person? If that's your argument, like I get all the goodies and I pay half the price. Like I'll never hire another person again.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. One, I think the market has shifted since COVID. We shifted the terminology of virtual COO to fractional probably in 2015. If you'd have jumped on LinkedIn and looked up fractional COO in 2015, without kidding, I don't know that you'd have found 10 people. Today, if you do it in between fractional COO or people on EOS like to use the word integrator, they're all over the place, right? There's just a lot of people individually doing that. So for us, I think the market has shifted where people are seeing that opportunity, and then it's just shifting mindset. And again, that's why we're here today, helping to educate the market. You can't use a resource you don't know about. Did you know that this would be an option? Most people try to solve a problem based on the knowledge of how they've solved it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so here all of a sudden it's like, oh, I could solve this problem differently. I didn't know you could do it this way. I may want to have a conversation with Bill or Kai at Thrive because this could be an option that I could take advantage of.
Got it. Interesting. I mean, I think this really came to the CFO slot first with Doug Tatum and Tatum Associates. I mean, they really were one of the creators of this fractional executive hire model, and they still exist. Obviously, he doesn't own it anymore, but I think it's come to this particular CXO position later in life as the model has matured. Actually,
100%. In 2006, when I saw the opportunity for outsourced executive leadership, I will wholeheartedly say I was mimicking the CFO that was already ahead of the game, and I'm like, they're just outsourcing a higher level of experience and leadership that an average company can't afford but could use in their business. Well, why wouldn't we do that in operations? And now we're finding, and I think again, I caution what I would say the business owners that are looking at this options to really dig deep that this person can meet their needs in the right kind of way. But it is a CFO, CMO, CTO, like it's all across the board. And I think certain companies, by the role that's needed, they will need full-time dedicated support. But even then, we've had companies that have a full-time COO, but they're so involved in the day-to-day that certain projects can't move the needle. So then we're brought in as that high-level partner that can come alongside them. And still, it's fractional COO services, but they have their primary leader in place. We're going to take on specific projects 90 days at a time to help move the needle for them.
Got it. Interesting. So we've talked about the economics. So not all of these engagements go well. Sometimes they get a little pear-shaped and things don't work out the way everybody planned. What would you say are the elements to watch out for a fractional engagement to go poorly? Like when we're like, man, that was a giant mistake. What would be the 2 or 3 things that you watch out for? Like, these are the markers that make me think things aren't going to go the way they should go and need to watch out for. This is, advice to a COO who's trying to hire someone like you or a CFO or fractionally. What are those markers?
Yeah. I think it's, first of all, you're looking for somebody to do a job, or you're looking for somebody to come along and be a real partner. And I know that could be semantics, but that's important to us. If somebody says, "Hey, I want to we want to engage with Thrive, but these are the 6 things I want you to do." Like, okay, your intuition may be 100% correct, but part of our process is that we do our strategy advance as the first implementation or the first thing once we onboard you. And when we have found that when we don't do that strategy advance, it always bites us in the butt later, right?
Interesting.
So we have to be willing. The business owner that we're serving has to be willing to not only trust us but trust our process.
Mm-hmm.
And as they trust our process, it allows us to be able to serve you better.
And so, okay, so the point is, even if they have expectations, it may not be right in terms of making sure they get the outcome they want. You think that there's a process of give me a little time to figure out what's really going on here and recommend against your recommendations and what I found, what should be the deliverables for your organization.
Yes, and do it in a collaborative way. And we call it our strategy advance, but it's our 5-step process of just working through to be clear on the culture, so we can help replicate that, clear on the goals, and make sure that the first 90 days are going to give us the quick wins we really want, right? And sometimes people just want, I want a headache to go away, right?
Yeah,
and we may be able to address that, but that's not the real issue that's keeping growth from taking place.
got it. Now, do all fractional CXOs do that? Give me a baseline, let me negotiate some deliverables, and then go for it.
Well, I can't speak for others, but I can speak for Thrive and say, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. And when I am meeting with a prospect, Jim, that is one of the things I'll share is that if you may indeed be speaking to either other firms that deliver like this, or you're talking to an individual that has competency and experience with some company, that may or may not mean that they can deliver what you're looking for. Don't hire somebody to help lead your operations that doesn't have a process and how they manage operations. Ask that question. Ask them to show it to you. We can show you. Here's how we're going to deliver our service.
Got it. Interesting. Are there any other sort of failure pathways besides sort of lack of clear expectations, which is really the one you're talking about? What other ways does this get ugly?
Yeah, it's always been about expectations. It's always it's not being clear on expectations, or when and we do it less and less because we've learned from it. But in the past, when we've compromised our process on how we deliver in order to accommodate the client's wishes, we've always regretted it. So now we just kind of stick to that.
Okay, but okay, I'm gonna give you just like a blink reaction. That sounds like a level of inflexibility, Bill. Like, hey, we got a way to do it, and we're gonna plug in our way to do it.
Yeah, if that's the way it comes across, it's certainly not the it is. I think all good strategy is firmly cemented in Jello. It has a structure, but it's wiggly and it's able to move.
Yep.
Our structure is meant to do that, and we want to be able to address issues and challenges that have happened in real time. But somebody who does not really have a business operating system and how they plan and strategize and are clear on what objectives they need to be facing, I wouldn't want to be a part of that company. So it's not a matter that we're inflexible. You can't change a plan that you don't have.
Yeah.
So our goal is to make sure you have a plan and then be able to change it. The people who don't have a plan say, "Well, I don't have a plan, so I can be nimble," and like bull.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's it's in my first book, but it's from Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, right? So Alice comes up to the Cheshire Cat and there's a fork in the road. Cheshire Cat appears and she goes, "Cheshire Cat, which road should I take?" There's a fork in the road. And he goes, "Well, it depends. Where are you trying to go?" And she goes, "Well, I don't really know." And he goes, "Well, then it doesn't matter which path you take, does it?" So that's the point of no plan. You how do you make your decisions? Because I don't know where I'm going. So I'm fully aligned with that. So let's get to sort of how do you know, because this is fractional and part-time, it is also temporary at some level, right? You're not going to stay for 10 years, probably.
Right.
How do you know it's time to leave as a fractional? How do you know it's time, like, hey, it's time for you to get a full-time person, or we've done what we can do here? How do you know it's time, and how do you have that adult conversation with the person who engaged you?
Yeah, well, one, that's part of the ongoing evaluation of the work that we're doing, right? And trying to know what the end game is. Part of, and that happens in a couple of different varieties. I don't even like the way I say this, but I'll back it up. Like, we lost, for those who are watching me on video, or not on video, I'm using the quotations. We lost 2 clients last year, but part of those 2 clients that we lost last year, the intent when we were in engagement is they had plans to sell their business, and there were a couple of operational initiatives that needed to get aligned so that they would be in the best position to be sold. And so we knew that we would come to the end of that engagement at some point, and it was a win. So did I lose?
I'm gonna give you a new word, Bill. Graduated them.
Yeah, they graduated. Yeah,
You graduated them.
Yeah, we graduated. But yeah. But there was but it was a healthy next step. I teased it on the all because I hated losing the revenue, but it was a win, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of navigate through that. Then there are times when it is. So we have a company right now where they have a long-term employee that has done some fantastic work, very committed, knows the company. They believe could be a COO in the future, but doesn't have the experience, knowledge, educational background, none of which that minimize who he is today. It's not there. So part of our engagement would be to say, let's come in, install our operating systems, work with the issues that need to be addressed now, but simultaneously walk alongside with this particular individual to prepare them to be your future leader. And there are, there's all kinds of ways that if we're clear of what the end game is, then we'll know it when it's the end time.
Yep. Got it. So let's get there. We have the adult conversation. Hey, it's time. How do you guys exit? How do you exit elegantly and, no collateral damage on because you become really core to somebody's business. I mean, you are right in the middle of their business. How do you exit that relationship in a way that works for everybody?
Yeah, so our method of operation should be always working ourselves out of a job on every effort anyway, right? So if we have the privilege of working with your company for 12 months, 18 months, 36 months, at different stages and different quarters, we should be clearly working on different objectives than we were, say, a year ago or 6
Yeah, you would hope so, sure. Yeah.
And that is the expectation. So we should be building that expectation all along that we are putting people and processes in place that where we can move on and move into the next thing. So by the time we exit out of a company, and it's at our best, those things should be in place. And when those things are in place, we walk away with a satisfied client and we walk away with a satisfying experience.
Now, will you help hire the next individual? Let's say we get to the point you've put all those elements in place. I need a full-time person. I've grown to that level and I get it. Will you help hire and interview that person? Because potentially the COO doesn't know how to hire. The CEO doesn't know how to hire a COO, and you do, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Now, we may end up partnering with a recruiter or HR company.
Sure.
But we will help guide that process, help define what we're looking for, help in fact, pre-screen and all of those types of things to kind of work through those efforts. So yeah, we want to be a partner to the very end.
Got it. Well, good. Well, what should I have asked you, Bill, that I didn't ask you?
What should you have asked me? You've asked some great and fantastic questions. If anything is for people to understand the difference between a firm model and the abundance of individuals out there that are slapping the fractional label in front of them, and you do hear probably in my voice a little bit of cynicism with that, right? But again, I think fractional is the new coach consultant. So what is the biggest difference between a firm model and an individual model? That's probably,
got it
from there.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, we have the same experience in CEO coach, right? I run into people and they go, I was chief legal officer of a company for 20 years and now I'm a CEO coach. I'm like, how exactly did you go from A to B? I really don't understand, but anyway. Well, cool. So what do you do for fun, Bill?
Well, I spend a lot of time with my family. I'm one of those individual, and my wife and I are one of those couples that encouraged our son to purchase our old home while we bought the home behind it. So
Oh my gosh.
we are backdoor grandparents.
Oh,
And so there's a gate in the fence between the 2 yards that we've installed. And we have 2 toddlers that we have an older grandson as well, but the 2 toddlers that are 3 and 5 are bursting with energy, and they do not enter the back door quietly.
nah. Like free range grandchildren.
True story, true story. And it's all about family for us.
That's fabulous. Awesome. Boy, there's a model for people. Backdoor grandparents. That is pretty
Mm.
cool. Talk about having support system, huh? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, this was fabulous. You really ran us through the whole drill. You're obviously deeply experienced, and I think the people that are contemplating, a fractional CXO of some sort, maybe COO, probably got a few pointers from you. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Oh, last thing, if people want to get more Bill Simmons in their life, what do they do?
So first, I encourage you to visit our website. And so business is the website, thrivebusinessoperations.com. You can schedule an appointment with myself or my business partner, Kai. We have an ebook called the Thrive Ops Cycle, which explains how our COOs install our operating system. But on anything that's social media, Bill Simmons Live, LIVE. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook with that same moniker, and I am quick to respond.
Sounds good. Awesome, Bill. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
And see you all next time on the Lazy CEO podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the CEO Project. At the CEO Project, we work with CEOs to help them grow their business. And our members represent billions of dollars of revenue and profit. And frankly, amongst all of us, we've probably made every mistake in the book, including some you haven't made yet. So if you want to learn from the experience of a bunch of really seasoned CEOs, we're a great place to hang out. In this podcast, what you're going to hear are some of those ideas, concepts, and things that are just going to help you on your journey. If you want to find out more, reach out to us at theceoproject.com, or you can contact me personally at jim@theceoproject.com. Happy listening.
Thanks for listening to the Lazy CEO podcast. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes, and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.